Society Matters.
Hello, and thank you for joining me today. I'm your host, Gilad Avrahami. I'm the Programs and Development Coordinator here at HMTC. This podcast is a production of the Holocaust Memorial and Tolerance Center of Nassau County. On today's episode of The Past Has an Afterlife on HMTV, my special guest, Tara Collins, will join me for a conversation about the extraordinary events that have brought her here and the role of history and memory in shaping her purpose in life. Tara, you are our wonderful receptionist here at HMTC, and it means that you welcome all the people who come through this center with an open heart, your whole person, all of your knowledge also about what we teach here at the center. I know you've read a lot about the Holocaust.
I have, yes.
What about the stories of the Holocaust interest you and inspire you, and what have you brought here with you?
First of all, thank you for having me.
Of
I
course.
appreciate it. I learned about the Holocaust. I went to private school. I learned about the Holocaust very early on. But you never really learn about the Holocaust until you get into it, till you talk to people who went through it, until you really read more about it. So I have, as you know, gone through the library upstairs and read as much as I can. I've talked to as many people as I can because I wanted to know before I came here, so I'd have some knowledge when speaking to other people. And the one thing I've really learned is that the human spirit is an amazing thing. The fact people do live through these things and go on and have lives and have a degree of normalcy when, they live through some of the worst atrocities ever. So basically what I've learned is the human spirit is amazing.
It's true.
Yeah,
and there are, as we've discussed here at the center, there's so many stories. It's
so
impossible to really cover everything.
It is.
And that's why, every single new one, every individual person who comes here and tells a new story or brings something from their family history.
True. And I've also found the theme that runs through a lot of it is forgiveness. Having been a person who's been through a lot of trauma in my life and generational trauma, I've found that the only way for myself, but for many other people, the only way to get through it, live through it, and recover from it is forgiveness. So maybe not so much as forgiving the person who harmed you, but forgiving yourself for everything that you had to go through to deal with that situation. And having talked to some of the Holocaust survivors, I find that's a theme also through all their stories, is forgiveness.
Right. How do you think they get that strength? And is it something similar to what you've experienced?
I think the will to live is an amazing thing, obviously. I think that your will to live for yourself, but also the will to live for your family and the people you love. And, people always say, love is all you need. But I think it's really true. I think that love is an amazing thing because it's the antithesis of hate. And good, evil, love, hate, it's all in that genre. And I think that people get through things by feeling love. So at least that's what I think. And you'll excuse me because, of course, as usual, my scientists are crazy.
Well, I think you're right. And I think that every time that I hear one of these stories, and I try to picture myself in their position, it's so difficult for me to imagine
of course.
Moving forward in the way that they do.
Right.
But it gives us a lesson for how to
True.
overcome adversity and how to create a better world for the future.
Right, and that's why when the kids come through the museum, the school children, a lot of them, they're so much on their phones with TikTok, and they don't really have the empathy. We always tell them to look at that one family album, that wall that we have in the museum. Pick out one picture, one face that you like, and picture that person in your mind as you go through the museum, because hopefully that creates a little empathy. Because, it's so hard to visualize yourself in that situation, or even sometimes visualize people, unless you've been through it or talked to somebody who's been through it.
Yeah, and I think it takes a lot of time also, a lot of maturity, a lot of life in order to understand.
True.
Something that isn't your own experience,
Exactly.
and to imagine yourself in that.
Exactly.
And then as a kid, I know it took a long time for me to really process that I had this very long family history that brought me to where I am, and all the things that they had to overcome or the things that they had to go through,
Right.
the decisions
and that was probably
they had
maybe
to
a
make.
protective mode of your family also, because you don't think that you want to immerse a child in all of your own trauma. And eventually you wait until maybe they're old enough and mature enough to understand, and then you bring little bits into it. So maybe that's how your family protected you also.
Maybe. And for you, what do you know now about your family history? I know that might have been a process for everyone. It's a process of learning.
It's a lot. On my father's side, we have a relative. His name is Michael Collins. He was the leader of the IRA, a close relative, like grandfather's brother. And the IRA was the Irish Republican Army in Ireland. And they were crazy and vicious and willing to fight for anything. And because of that, my family was kind of burned out of Ireland. There were family farmers that were burned. There were people that were assassinated. So that's just on my dad's side. On my mother's side, everybody who was a woman from my great-great-grandmother and up were stoned or drowned or hung as witches during the 16th and 17th witch hunts that went across Europe. So a lot of generational trauma there. And it's funny because, when I didn't know that about my mom's family until I was a lot older. I knew about my dad's because he always talked about it. But when I was a little girl, I was obsessed with witches. Still am. And it was funny because I didn't know anything about that part of my family.
Right.
So it's weird that,
Yeah,
dichotomy.
maybe somehow, exactly. It lives inside of you, or it comes up as you grow up. Yeah.
Does the past have an afterlife? There you go.
I think
It's really interesting.
It does, and we don't know exactly what it is yet.
It's so interesting. It's so interesting.
And the things that you learn as you get older, as you understand how you're similar to your parents, or understand, what things motivate you, your sense of where you come from as well, and why that matters to you.
Yeah, and I think also, like, my mother grew up in very rural Ireland, where there was no towns really, and she was very, very poor, and 6 kids, Irish Catholic, no money. And so she was like a wise woman, just like her mother and her grandmother and her great-grandmother. And the wise women of that time were mostly from rural, poor parts because they didn't have money to go to doctors. They had to make their own medicine. They had to use the herbs and the plants and the trees that they found. And that's basically all that a witch was back then. But there was such a stigma about it. So it's just, it's all, to me, I'm fascinated by all of it.
Right. Well, what have you learned? How much of that came from family stories as you grew up, and how much of it was your own exploration?
Well, my father, who was a very interesting man, used to tell me about the Michael Collins thing all the time. It's something he was very proud of instead of being ashamed of, which is interesting. He was also brilliant. He graduated Fordham Law School when he was 19 years old. He had his leg caught in a wheat thresher when he was 12 and amputated, and he put himself through school by boxing. He had a very big ego, so he liked to tell story. A typical Irishman liked to tell lots and lots of stories. So for him, every day was a Michael Collins story. Whether all of them were true or not, I can't tell you. But most of it was true from documentation that I have. My mother, not so much. My mother didn't really talk too much about her childhood. Her parents were abusive and poor, and the stories you hear about people saying I had to walk 12 miles, in the snow to get to school, that was her life growing up. And she came here when she was 14 by herself to make a better life for herself. So I didn't really learn about that whole concept until I was probably in my 30s.
Right. Do you think that she wanted to forget it? She wanted to leave it behind and make herself completely separate from it?
Yes, but she loved her homeland. She loved Ireland. She went back a lot because we have lots of relatives over there. But she never talked too much about her childhood until I was a lot older. I didn't find out too much about, anything, like I said, until my 30s. I didn't even find out about her abuse and what happened to her until maybe a couple of years before she died. I think she just wanted to let me know what was going on.
Wow.
Yeah.
And how did your parents meet? Did they meet in Ireland? Did they meet here? Or?
Oh, my God. First of all, they were both horrific alcoholics. My mother had been sober for 30 years before she passed away, but my father, who was a criminal defense attorney, just kept drinking. So they met in a bar in America. My father ended up taking off his leg and beating some man over the head with it because the man had tried to flirt with my mother. And my mother was only 19 at the time, and my father was already almost 60. He was a lot older than my mom. And that's how they met. He was very charming. She was very innocent. It was the second marriage. She'd never been married before. They met. She fell in love. And, then it was just a crazy whirlwind romance.
Yeah.
And they stayed together for a long time, way past the point that they should have, because, it was a crazy relationship.
Eventually they separated?
They never got divorced. I think I was probably 17 at the time. And my mom went on to, live a really good life and, and do great things for herself. My dad, though, gradually went downhill. And like I said, he was a brilliant man. He was also an author. He was a judge in Glen Cove for a little while. Wow. He ended up dying homeless in a car from alcoholism. Wow. Yeah. So it was a crazy childhood. It was a good childhood up until about 10 years old, and then I started to see the alcoholism and how bad it was. And like my mother would say, "Oh, don't bother your father. He's sleeping." This is 4:00 in the afternoon, but I was used to that. He would have a case the day. They would go out with his buddies and get drunk, come home, pass out, and I wouldn't see him for the whole day. But it seemed normal to me growing up, But there were a lot of indications, but I was too young at the time. Then later on, you would see it more and more. Picked me up from school one day. I'll never forget this. I was in private school. He picked me up from school one day, totally smashed out of his gourd. And the DWIs were not the same as they are now,
Sure.
And he knew all the police. So if anything had ever happened, they would have just said, "Okay, Mr. Collins, take your keys and we'll follow you home." Picked me up from school one day and passed out on the seat, and I had to push him over. And I think I'm going to say 11 or 12. And I drove home.
Wow.
Yeah. But it was for me, it was normal.
Right.
So that's how I grew up.
Wow.
Yeah. It's crazy.
It's crazy.
It's crazy.
And it makes you, just think.
But I mean, when I think back on all the there was a whole bunch of instances of that. And my mother was just working because my father would have a case every once in a while. And he had a lot of money when they first got married, but then, he wasn't working and the alcohol got really bad. So they took me out of private school, and she was working a lot. She was working as a nanny. She was cleaning houses. He would have like a case a month. So she didn't really have the time to spend with me. Mm-hmm. So I was with my dad a lot, which was great. I loved him to death. But all it was drinking, just drinking. And, at night they would drink together and then fight, be crazy. She threw his leg down a staircase. It was crazy.
That must have been some night.
It was some night. Yeah, it was interesting. But, I think I'm a better person for it because, you live through and you go on, just like any survivor of anything. Yeah. When you have so much trauma in your life, there's so many ways to handle it. You either deal with it, go through it, or you fall apart. Luckily for me, I went through it. So
it's not just lucky; it was something you decided.
I think something too. I think in my family history, because there's been so much trauma, and there's so many strong people, so many strong women, that I think I inherited a little bit of that.
So when you went back in your 30s into your family history a little bit and learning about where they came from and how they got here and how that informs you. I mean, what did you learn? What lessons did you take from those people who you never met, who are further
Never give
back?
up, never surrender, that usual thing that everybody says.
Yeah.
It's very true. If you see something horrible, if you see evil, if something bad is being done to somebody else, step in and do something. There were the daughters of my great-great-great-grandmother, when they were taking her away and they were going to drown her. She had 3 daughters, and they all fought like hell against these. I guess they would have been, I don't know what you would call it. It's called the Garda in Ireland. But way back in the day, I guess it would have been the British police at that time. They fought against them, and one of them was shot and killed to try and stop them from doing this to their mother. But they just nobody ever backs down in my family. Nobody ever backs down. Everyone is so freaking stubborn, which is a trait that I also have. So if you feel something, do something about it. And that's what I learned.
Yeah. When you look back at the people who threatened to, or in some cases, killed your ancestors on your mother's side, right. People who were, because they were witches or because that was something that had this huge stigma that
it was huge.
There was such a strong movement to just do away with them and put them to the side and not want to look at them. And how do you look back at those people who did that?
I understand it. I understand it because just like anything, when people are ignorant or don't know, they tend to look at it with fear. And some of those same people who went after my family were the same people who were knocking at the door at 3 a.m. looking for a poultice or looking for a remedy or a potion or something, all done in secret. But a lot of it too is, like I said, fear, but a lot of it also is having to conform. We're talking about rural Ireland that was ruled by Britain. And most people, if you went against the government in any way, shape, or form, you were dead.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you have to go along with what they say or you no longer have a life. So in that, I understand.
Yeah. Well, I don't think that's unique to rural Ireland at all,
It's
of course,
not-
right? So I think
not at all. It's
almost any
everywhere.
story about any country,
Anywhere.
any moment in history, any period of oppression or of, when there is a group that is targeted, when there is a group that is accused of something, right? That it generates all of these sort of kinds of fears and questions of where do I stand if the government is telling me to do something, or what is my relationship with these neighbors who I've lived with for such a long time?
And you can't always fault, they always, stand up for yourself, like I said, never give up, never surrender. But you can't fault somebody. You can't fault a family who has, little children and living on meager allowances, to go along with the flow, because, people could come in and take your children and kill you and burn down your farm. So, yeah.
I was wondering if you have any pictures or mementos of your family.
I have a lot. I should have brought some with me today, but I didn't think about it at all. But I do. I have pictures of Michael Collins. I have pictures of my grandparents, and I don't have too many pictures on my mother's side, and I don't have any childhood pictures of my mother. They didn't have a camera. There was no money for film. Nobody was taking pictures. There wasn't like a Christmas tree.
Right.
I think one orange among like 6 kids, stuff like that. They were really, really poor. So I don't have any pictures like that on my mom's side. But on my dad's, I have a lot. So it's good. I go back and look at everything every once in a while, and amazed that I came from such beautiful people.
There's a lot of inspiration in seeing people go through some things like that and to come out on the other side and decide to do something differently.
Exactly.
Or just to imagine yourself in their place.
Right. And again, like the Holocaust survivors, human spirit.
Yeah.
Families were killed, places were burned, people were tortured, and yet their family name hopefully still remains. There are still people who remember. So, and that's why, your podcast is so great, because if you don't remember, then, you'll always forget.
Right. And it still happened, but the question is how much we can do with it today.
Exactly.
Whether we can draw inspiration from it, whether we can continue to tell those stories. And that's also a question about ourselves. Someday we'll be perhaps long forgotten, but perhaps not, old and gray, and just we kind of have a responsibility. I mean, that's something we're trying to do.
Right.
I think we have a responsibility.
Hopefully we'll be remembered for the good stuff and what good we did, and what good we did for others. I hope.
Yeah. Can you talk me through a little bit the historical events that were going on around the time that your parents and family members before that, when they immigrated, and even before then, what was going on that sort of informed what was happening to your family?
Okay, well, in Ireland at that time, Ireland didn't gain their independence till way late, so the British were taking over everything. And it was always that fight also in Ireland between the Catholics and the Protestants. I mean, that's been going on for hundreds and hundreds of years. So you had the British there, forcing their rule, and then in Ireland, with the Irish people, you had them fighting. So you had a civil war on top of it. So it was hard for everybody. And Ireland's never been a very wealthy country to begin with. So the poor got poorer. And then you had the great potato famine that happened, and people were just dying, on the sides of the roads, dying on their farms. It's just a very sad time. Ireland has always had a very harsh history. So and all that was going on during both parts of my family's history. But in the 16th and 17th century, it was even worse. Ireland, it was so rural and so poor, and it's amazing that, to come from such hardy stock, to have gone through that.
Yeah. Yeah. And here you are today.
And here I am today.
So what would you say as you're growing up, other than your family, what were your influences? And if, I know you mentioned that you decided to, escape some of, or try to escape some of the influences in your family that you didn't want to live with.
I moved out of my house when I was 16 years old. Mm-hmm. Like I said, I was in private school, and then I was in public school. But in between those, I went to boarding school in Berkshire, Massachusetts, which was wonderful. I got away from, the alcoholism. I got away from the trauma a little bit, and I learned a lot up there, and I made great friends. So going to boarding school was a really good thing for me. Then I came back and was right back in it. as a teenager. So I said, I'm going to move out.
Yeah.
So I did. I was, I think, 16, 17. I moved out. And that was hard, because you're a teenager. I was working, and that was really difficult. But then I met a man, and I got married, and he was a great influence. He was such a good guy, and he helped me a lot to grow up. Unfortunately, he passed away in the first year that we got married.
Wow.
Yeah, so that was really difficult. And then my mother was getting sober, and she was a different person. She was wonderful. She was elegant and intelligent and kind, and she was not the woman I really grew up with. And we became best friends. My mother's probably one of the biggest influences in my life. She was a really good person. She helped everybody, and she loved so freely. When she got rid of my dad, she was able to just live her life. So I think the first person that I would say would be my mom. She was my biggest influence.
Did you grow up here in Glen Cove?
I grew up in Locust Valley, which is one town over. And then, like I said, I moved out of my house. I had gotten married, and then I worked in the city at J. Walter Thompson in advertising. And then I kind of burned myself out, so I took a cross-country trip across the United States with my mom. And we went to San Francisco, which was one of the first places that she came to when she was here from Ireland, when she came to the United States. And I found out, and I met all of her friends, which included Bob Dylan.
Wow.
And Jerry Garcia and Tom Clancy. And and they still, to this day, send cards to me and talk about my mother. And it was a lot of fun. I always remember that trip.
What on earth was your mom doing when she was there?
It's so funny. She loved music. She loved all types of music. She couldn't sing. She couldn't match any notes. She played guitar, not very well, but she just loved all types of music. And people just loved her. She was so charming. She was just so open. And so that was a lot of fun, and I met a lot of really interesting, cool people.
So how do you keep your mom alive today, so to speak?
She's with me every day, every single day. And I don't know if you believe in signs or not, but sometimes I'll be thinking about her, and a school bus will go by, and the back of the school bus will say Collins. One day I was hiking in the woods, this place called Wellwyn in Locust Valley. I had my dogs with me, and I was thinking about her and thinking about her and thinking about her. And the dog went over this little hill, and I ran after it, and I fell. And when I kind of picked my face off the dirt, there was a little 4-leaf clover pin stuck right in front of me. Just little signs, and I hear her in my ear all the time. And she was really a real smother. Yeah, Shimmy called me every day. We talked twice, 3 times a day. She only lived a block away from me. Yeah, so she's with me all the time. So it's a good thing. My dad is too, but in other ways, my love of the written word was from him. My love of reading was from him and my mother. Just different things. He had all these really crazy sayings that I find myself saying. So, despite how he was, despite my childhood, he's still with me too. I feel like my parents are always with me, which is a great thing. I never not felt loved growing up, despite all of the mess. I never felt that they did not love me. And I think that's so important when you're a child, to know that you are loved. And again, it goes back to that theme of love. So,
do you talk about them with people?
Oh yeah,
yeah.
Oh sure. Oh yeah. Like I said, I've forgiven them for everything. I do. I'll be like, oh, my mother used to do that, or let me tell you something my mother taught me, or my dad was doing that one day. Oh yeah, I do, definitely. And I'm an only child, so there's really nobody else to talk to about it besides my friends or people that I meet.
Sure.
Yeah, it's a lot.
It's a lot, and I think I'm inspired by how freely you
have to.
And you have to, I guess.
I can't say you have to in general, but I've been through a lot of trauma in my life, a lot of trauma. I was in a really, really bad car accident once where I went through my windshield and landed up against somebody else's windshield. So I was in a hospital for a long time. I was a victim of a home invasion where 2 men came in and robbed me and beat me. If you do not forgive yourself for how you feel about these people or how you were feeling at the time, you forgive yourself first, And then if you can, you forgive the other people for what they did to you. Because if you do not do that, it eats at you and eats at you, and you become fearful of everything. You become kind of hateful. You become bitter, and you can't live a life like that. How can you live a life like that? You need people in your life, and if you are like that, you're not going to have anybody around you. Again, it's that same thing, and I'm going to keep coming back to it. And I'm not a hopeless romantic, but love is so important. Any type of love, whether it's parental love, love for yourself, love for an animal, love for your history, your friends, your coworkers, whatever it is, it's so important to have that.
Well, you need to just have a certain amount of love for the world in order to
So important
to put good things into it.
Yes,
right?
and you have to, I'm going to say love your life, but love life. Whether it's life on this planet, whether it's life in your dreams, whether it's life you've heard about, someone else's life. If you do not love that, then why live?
Tara, we're so lucky to have you.
Gilad, I'm so lucky to be here. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone, for tuning into this episode of The Past Has an Afterlife on HMTV. I would like to deeply, deeply thank my guest, Tara Collins, for sharing her inspiring story.
I appreciate it, honey. Thank you for having me. It was fun.
I was so glad to do so. If you enjoyed exploring the information, history, and stories in today's conversations, be sure to check out our other podcasts here on HMTV. Please subscribe, share, and stay connected for more engaging conversations. Until next time, take care and be well.